Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Purple Curd Podcast. I'm your host of what may be the end of an era and the beginning of a new one, a rebirth, if you will. Let's just let this go for a little bit, because it is the day that this album came out, May 10th, 1988. We're going to talk about Lovesexy. We're going to talk about May 10th, 2015, when Prince played the Freddie Gray benefit concert for the Boys and Girls Clubs, was streaming on Tidal at this important date. And the other gentleman on my other side of the screen here is none other than the return of the Electric Man.
The Electric Man.
Mr. J. David Silva, my silver lining, if you will. Welcome to the Purple Curd Podcast, my brother. This has been in the works for a long time.
Sure has.
So, welcome, sir. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm happy to be here, Kurt. Finally.
I'm happy to have you on. So, first things first. David and I have been talking about this podcast. Jay, excuse me. I'm going to use your middleman. I could use your government name, but, that might mean, the tax man's coming after you, you're in trouble. So, Jay and I have been back and forth about doing this together for a minute. And I said, how would you like to join forces on the podcast? I feel like that I needed somebody to bounce off of. And this has been in the stars. So Jay, both and I grew up roughly around the same time period living in Connecticut. And wouldn't you know, the first time I at least saw Prince, he was at the same show in Hartford, Connecticut, September 30th, 1988. And of course, you could talk a little more about that. Now, was that your first Prince show that you went to see?
No, my first Prince show was March 26th of 85 on the Purple Rain Tour in Hartford.
Shit.
My first one. And then the second one was the Parade Tour, August 3rd of 86 at Madison Square Garden.
I say, that's okay. So you already got two legs up on me with the live shows and things. So, but that's incredible. Now, so the Hit and Run tour, and so this one would be your third show? Because obviously Sign of the Times didn't come here. Wouldn't that have been nice?
Yeah, the Lovesexy show was my third show.
Third time's a charm, man, because that was the show to go to. I mean, not that the other ones weren't.
Right. But just, the theatricality and the scope of the show.
The spectacle.
It really was something. But what I do remember, Kurt, about that show, it was not sold out. I mean, there were a significant number of empty seats. It was still a huge crowd, but still a significant number of empty seats.
Yeah, it was. I remember that too. I mean, how can we forget? And many people who have seen the Live at Dortmund show in 1988 will recall that he had this fiberglass replica, 3/4 size replica, if I'm not mistaken, of the 66 Thunderbird.
Right.
And, coming in with Kat and with Sheila, up to the opening beats of Erotic City. I mean, how can you forget snare drum pounds on the 2 and 4? All the party people get on the floor. And
then it's just
the first time I get to hear Prince and I get to hear erotic, I get to hear B-side. I mean, come on. But, and a longtime friend of mine who I'm going to take, or she's going to meet me out. She's going to Celebration this year to celebrate her 50th. Kirsten Porter. Shout out to you, Kirsten, because I know you're going to watch this. Kirsten and I went to rival high schools together, and we did a choral concert exchange, rival high schools. And so we bonded over the love of Prince's music, and this will be the first time that either one of us saw Prince together. So 30 some years later, 36 years later, we're still the best of friends and seeing each other and been to each other. I'm going to her daughter's graduation, her high school graduation, and we're going to celebrate her 50th the day of for the deluxe tour at Paisley Park Studios. Wow, the whole deluxe tour, yeah.
Unbelievable.
So, yeah, but back to...
If I can just speak on that just for a minute, because that's one of the things that, I really took away from the association with Prince. It's the people that I've met or the people that I get to interact with that maybe
That part.
you and I have never met physically in person. Not yet, but it's coming.
Oh,
And
you know that's true.
But the relationships that are formed, the people that you meet, and the bond that you create over the love of the music, the love of the artistry, the love of everything that Prince was about. Yeah. It's the connections with the people that were in his camp, and then people, you know, outside of his camp, is invaluable to me. You know, it really means something to me. And, you know, doing what we're doing right now, and, you know, my great brother Joe Kelly, who is like my blood brother. Joe and I met at the record section of Cutler's record store in New Haven.
Oh my God, there's a name I haven't heard forever.
Absolutely. It was May of 91, and that's how we met, rocking and rolling together ever since. So it's that kind of stuff that's not lost on me.
Okay. So to piggyback on that, and that's beautiful. And I don't really know him like you do, and we haven't even exchanged a message or anything like that, but we'll probably change that. I bought the record at the Danbury Mall. Mm-hmm. The Danbury Fair Mall, because it was a fairground originally. Got to get that right. First time I ever drove on a highway to go anywhere was to the Danbury Mall to meet friends. I mean, this is the, you know, pre-social media. These kids don't even know that. You don't even know the struggle.
That's right, the struggle.
Our asses had to go to the mall to get new music.
The record
store,
right?
I got it at I think it was Sam Goody.
Sam Goody, okay.
Would that have been the record chain there? Yep. Yeah, that would have been. I think it was Sam Goody. And I bought it on cassette because I was cheap. Because, you know, I had one of those combo units that had a little turntable, instant 45 thing, a nice FM AM radio thing, little, you know, wire antenna, and then had the cassette deck. I thought that was hot shit.
Right.
Didn't have the CD yet, but eventually I got a cassette adapt. I had to put in an aftermarket cassette thing into my 79 Chevy Caprice, white with powder blue cloth interior, and the roof of the interior eventually sagged, so I felt like I was in a tent. I'll never forget that. And listening to Lovesexy for the first time, and like, okay, this is definitely not Prince that we're used to. I mean, the word that comes to my mind, it was impressionistic.
Absolutely.
It's it's not psychedelic. It's impressionistic. There are these, you know, the sound collage in the beginning. You know, my name is Andre Crabtree. I got more holes than a golf course. Of course, we would hear that reprised again in Joy and Repetition, the Graffiti Bridge soundtrack, right? And the only time we would hear a song used twice on two albums at that time anyway was the Black Album with When Two Are in Love,
which is one of my favorite tracks. That and Anesthesia are my two favorite.
Anesthesia gave me new life. That song is one of the most important songs for me personally in his catalog.
Yep.
And I know we were talking on this before we ever did this on air a couple days ago. You saw the One Night Alone tour, and I believe he brought that song back on that tour because I know it's on the live album.
Right. He sure did. Yeah, and it was fantastic.
Using the whole, you know, DC.
Right.
You know, that using the whole voice modification thing.
And when he did it, it was, you know, at the end of the show, and the guitar work and the musicianship, it was just something to see and hear, you know.
If we ever had an orchestral Prince live concert, that's got to have a moment, a spotlight moment, because at the time, and I've asked Dr. Fink this about at that time, he used, now in his earlier 80s stuff, he used the Roland DX7 FM synthesizer, right?
I'm myself squared away here. Sorry about
that. No,
you're
good. And on that particular album, he was using the then new Roland D50.
Okay.
And there was a lot of preset sounds because he didn't he didn't waste time. He's like, all right, that sounds good. Because at the end of the album, he uses, I can't remember the patch. Somebody out there who knows it will know better than me. He used a patch that's just stock patches right on the Roland D50. and makes like a waterfall sound. That's a Roland D50 stock, and I wish I could remember the name because I went to a summer guitar camp months after Lovesexy went out in like June or July, and I got to mess around with a Roland D50, which is brand new at that hot shit at that time.
Sure.
And Dr.
Wow.
Fink confirmed for me that a lot of the string patches and stuff like that all came from that Roland D50.
Really?
And if I'm not mistaken, I think Fink is the one who turned him on to that. I'll have to ask Matt. I may or may not see Matt this summer. After I'm not going. My 10th wedding anniversary is on June 20th, so I don't want to sleep on the couch for the rest of the year. So I'm going to go. I'm going to honor my 10th wedding anniversary. Yeah, we already know. If you've been a married individual for any length of time, you know you do not.
You can't mess around.
You can't mess around on a decade anniversary at all.
Right.
You can't. So, but after the reign of purple is celebrated, I'm taking two friends. So I'm taking a young lady, Lori, if you're out there, she's watching this later after we film. After we record this. God, I still want to say film.
Yeah.
There's so many thoughts about that time period, and I mean that if you had to have seen a show, I mean the great Roy Bennett, sure. Brenda Bennett's ex-husband, who is still designing lighting for like Paul McCartney's the Got Back tour was his design. I think Lady Gaga, you name a famous person, he's doing their lighting and staging designs.
Yeah.
That pushed the envelope of technology at that time with the hydraulics.
Right.
If you recall, Jay, Controversy comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like watching, it's time to go to church, y'all. Dun, 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 and the hydraulics start lifting up to make like the stained glass panels of the video.
Yep. And the blinds backdrop, which, with the stark white lighting, coming through like on the Controversy tour.
And it's just like the washed out white light in the video. It was genius. But that's the genius of Leroy Bennett. To be able to pick up, all right, here's what I want you to do, Leroy. Blah, 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 make it happen.
Yep.
Right? And so Eric Leeds and folks who have been waiting for part 2 and part 3 of my Eric Leeds interview, I will be dropping that next week.
Very good.
So there have been 1 or 2 people on here who've been really like, yeah, I like all your other videos that you've had lately, but where's the Dr. Fink? The young gentleman that was supposed to have edited that has been AWOL. Like, can't even reach on the cell phone, can't even drop the Facebook account, dropped off the face of the earth. So I'm like, not sure what's going on there. So, yeah. And so at any rate, that I'm going to put that out in its unfiltered, unedited form. So be ready for 3 hours of Eric Leeds talking about all hosts of subjects. But he said, Kurt, I could spend an hour alone with you just talking about what a nightmare the rehearsals were, tech rehearsals were for that show.
Wow.
And he's just incredibly not very fun. he's got what they call Prince PTSD from those shows alone.
Having a conversation with Jelly Bean Johnson, yeah. Recap some of the rehearsals that they had to go through with Prince even back in the day,
yeah.
When their Time Is It album, when they were going to be going out on the road, even also to support the 1999 album. And Jelly Bean would tell the stories about how intense that was. I mean, literally 10 hours a day.
Yep.
Prince was no joke. You had to come correct if you were going to be on his bill.
But and he talks about this. I know in other interviews, Eric talked about Sign of the Times tour where they would rehearse a few bars and then Prince would go, stop. All right, let's fix that lighting, Roy. I don't like this, that, the other thing, and stuff like that. And that was Leroy's favorite production he had ever done because just he himself has PTSD because of all the technical things that could go wrong any minute. There's so many things. Of course, he wanted a waterfall on stage and all this other highfalutin stuff that just never happened. It's like, how the fuck are you going to get a waterfall?
Products and everything.
Yeah, I mean, but again, when you look at future tours for many other artists down the road, Prince and Leroy Bennett's Prince's vision, and and Leroy Bennett's editing that vision, to so to speak, and helping Prince to modify his vision where it was feasible, barely, to bring that stuff on tour. You see other tours much later on, Janet Jackson, you name it, an artist. They paved the way. They were the pioneers of what future for the next 10, 15 years, I would say, out.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that, because the things that they did back then, when you supposedly weren't supposed to be able to do those things, absolutely paved the way for a lot of the theatrics and the show that we see right now. So I totally agree.
Yeah. Oh, I just want to point out, ladies and gentlemen, that behind Mr. J's head there is an autographed copy of Vibe that he got.
There it is. Yep.
The man signed it.
One of my prize been offered, had offers for it, money. The whole band signed it. Maite is on there. The NPG is on there. Nona signed it. That was the day. It was July 12th of 94. And I was newly married. I was like a month married. And
the Today Show, right?
Right after the Today Show. Not right after the Today Show was in the morning. And then about 4 o'clock, he showed up at Tower Records. It was planned. So me and Joe had gone and waited out there in the brutal heat. And we literally stood out there from 10 until we got into Tower Records at 4 o'clock. And then just go up and meet the band. And it was just, it was just a wonderful.
It was. I mean, don't you miss Tower Records?
I do.
Come on, who doesn't from that era?
There was one here at the mall. I used to love the one in New York, because that's the one we would always go to. Yeah. And we would try, take the train into the city just to go to Tower Records, because you never knew what you were going to find there. And there were a lot of Prince gems in there. I met Diamond and Pearl there as well. Dragged my wife to go meet Diamond and Pearl before she was my wife.
Oh my God.
Diamonds and Pearls tour, before the Diamonds and Pearls tour. Yeah, it was something.
What is the young lady's name? She's been on a bunch of recent interviews. Funkatopia had one of the gals that was Diamond or Pearl, and I can't remember the gal's name.
Is it I don't know how you say it. Robia Lamort?
Rubia Scott?
Yeah, Rubia Scott, right. And then the other one is something Lamort, I think her last name.
Yeah. Right? But Rubio has been on recently, so she, yeah. Hey, listen, I don't mind us waffling off the top, because you and I, brother, from now on, folks, I will make every effort that for the two of us have to be on any guests I have on the show. This is the you are the co-host anytime you want to be, bro.
And I appreciate that. I have love for that.
I've been wanting this to happen for a while.
Join you.
Listen, because we both, folks, you got to understand, we both share the same kind of, almost the same timeline. I mean, you're a couple years older, but not by much. 4 years, right? Because you said 57?
57, yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I remembered correctly. Heinz, mnemonics. Heinz 57.
Right.
You got all the right ingredients, brother. Heinz 57. All right, you got a bunch of nicknames now. Silver Lining, right. Heinz 57.
Electric Man, right?
Shoot, dude, I'm telling you, this is and the fact that so with Lovesexy, I just you didn't go to the record signing for that, did you? Wasn't he at Tower for that?
He was at Sam Goody for that in New York.
Sam Goody.
And I didn't go. I should have gone to the show at Madison Square Garden, because I saw Hartford. At the time, I was 21, and funds were kind of hard to come by, and putting myself through school, so, if I remember correctly, because I wanted better seats, I think I got my ticket scalped. I got my ticket scalped for the Purple Rain tour. And here's an interesting story. I still have the ticket stub. Those tickets were $17.50, I think. That was the face value.
And we thought that was a fortune back then.
Right. Well, I ended up paying $50. We got 4 tickets. I ended up paying $50 per ticket. And at the time, this is 1985, I'm like, I'm working at the grocery store, for crying out loud. So $50 was a lot of money. But
Brother Jay, you're lucky to pay $50 just to park in the Paisley Park parking lot.
Thank you. Right. So let me stop complaining, okay?
Right? I mean, but folks don't realize, we're almost talking 39 years ago for that.
Right.
So, you adjust for inflation. Well, even adjusting for inflation, shit's just too expensive for that.
The last time I ended up seeing Prince, well, the second to last time, because I went to 2 shows or 3 shows on the Welcome to America tour. And the time that my wife Robin and I went, I got the tickets through a broker again because I wanted to sit where I wanted to sit. And I was like on the of Madison Square Garden. They were $225 each. I wasn't even on the floor.
Yeah.
The last time I saw him was at Mohegan Sun, the casino. He had sold out the arena 3 nights. I went the first night, December 27th of 2013. And because my brother has a great friend who is a high roller, he comped us the tickets. So we ended up on the floor right almost diagonally across from Prince at that show, and it was unbelievable. And again, that was the last time I saw him live.
I mean, okay. This might be a good time to transition. So the last time you saw him live was 2013, and that was considered still Welcome to America at that point, or Hit and Run, or?
Oh, that was with Third Eye Girl. So
right.
Technically, they were still billing some of those shows as Hit and Run. So
yeah. I mean, that was a very transitional. So Ida Nilsson,
Hannah Welton.
Thank you, Hannah Welton, Josh
Francis,
Welton's wife,
right?
And then would go on to do.
He brought the full horn section with him, so the NPG horns. He had 20 horn players on stage with him. So because he came out to Days of Wild, went into a killer version of 1999, but then he did Extra Lovable, he did Musicology, but he broke it up. So he almost had like the hit section. Then he had a middle section where it was She's Always in My Hair, Something in the Water, and Let's Go Crazy, the slowed down version. And then he went into all the horn stuff. So it was almost like he had different sections of the show. Yeah. And the horns did a prominent part in it. But then he did the sampler set at the end and an unbelievable version of Purple Rain that just brought the house down afterwards. So it was you never knew what you were going to get when you went to a show.
And can you imagine these players had to be ready probably last minute. Oh, by the way, we're going to throw this in here and go.
Right. And go. Be ready to go. Right.
I mean, so I'm going to piggyback on this. So I just listened to a recent guest that I had on here, Martin Ware, Heaven 17 fame, and Electronically Yours podcast. He just had the saxophone player who I believe was part of this. So Sly Fifth Avenue.
Yep.
And Sly is his latest guest that just dropped today and talked about his time with Prince. And this guy lives in Mexico City now. He decided to move to Mexico City. So people who want to hear a little more about that time period, Sly Fifth Avenue did a lot of the arrangements for that tour, I believe. Yeah. That's what's up with that. So transitioning from 2013 to the last time that I would actually see Prince was this tour right here. I don't have it as a backdrop, but I'm going to do it the old school way, the tangible way. This tour right here. So at the time that I got this actual shirt, and this shirt's probably I've got 2 of these, by the way. It doesn't fit me anymore because thanks to the Noom, I should be sponsored by Noom. Thanks to the Noom dieting app, I've gone down, 2 shirt sizes. So I used this extra large. I went down to medium. But I saw this tour. It was Sunday, Mother's Day, 2015. So Jay and I were talking before we hit the record button here that the circumstances surrounding this particular show, many people will know that this was a benefit concert in memory of Freddie Gray and raising a portion of the monies for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Baltimore. Because Prince was very moved by what had gone on a couple weeks prior and wrote the song Baltimore. I got to hear Baltimore performed live. I mean, just thinking about that, the weeks prior to that, I had told Jay that I had seen Stevie Wonder come into town to do the Songs in the Key of Life tour. And I believe that was April 5th, somewhere early April. And a couple days later, the rough ride in the back of a police car, one of those police vans, occurred to this young man who was walking the streets late at night, Freddie Gray, and all hell broke loose weeks after. And we were living in curfew for 2 weeks. I literally went to school, seeing National Guard tanks and stuff like that, up and back. And then a couple days, like 3 days before, 4 days before, as is Prince's habit, he announced that he's going to do a show. I paid, we were $250 for the seats that I had, and $500 on the floor if you wanted close seats. I wasn't going to be getting the $500. I couldn't afford that. I wish I had gotten them, not knowing that this would be the last time I'd see Prince live, because we all thought he was going to live forever.
Forever, right.
Or at least till his 80s. And I had a good side view on stage left, house left rather, stage right, and a whole host of guests. At that time, there was a medley. There was the typical concert opener he had at that time was you heard For You, and then the Don't Worry, I Won't Hurt You, all that stuff, and then he opened up with a very slow version at that time with the Third Eye Girl band backing him up of Let's Go Crazy. And I remember he encouraged everybody to wear something gray.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I had some kind of gray. I had a Heart concert T-shirt on. I remember that because it was actually gray.
Okay.
I had seen them, I think, a couple years prior to that. And yeah. That show, I mean, I took my now husband at that time. We had just gotten married the year before that, and in June of 2014. So technically newlyweds, but we'd been together a couple years before that, before the whole national referendum happened for the marriage equality. And he'd never seen Prince before. He liked Prince, but he's not at the level of fan, that I would be, more casual fan, and appreciates him. And how can you not? You go live in a household with a diehard, you gonna appreciate some Prince,
right?
You gonna like some Prince, whether you gonna learn about Prince whether you like it or not.
And I told all my kids that, so like it or not.
But you know what? You're raising them right, though, Jay. You're raising them right, man.
And if I can just piggyback on that for a minute,
please.
It's interesting now because they now have an appreciation for Prince. My two oldest daughters have the old retro Purple Rain shirts, and I got to take my youngest, who's now 17. I took her to the time. There was a private show of Morris Day and the Time at Foxwoods here in Connecticut, December of 2022. So I was able to go to the show. I brought my youngest. My other kids have not seen Morris Day and the Time yet, even all the times I've seen them and hung out with them and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I brought my youngest to the show, and she loved the show because she'd heard all the songs I'd been playing all those years. She ended up going backstage. They treated her like royalty. They treated Julie like they had known her forever. We walked in backstage after they had just gotten through playing. They're trying to eat. They stopped everything, came over and told her that she had to take a picture with them. She took pictures. Jelly Bean fawned all over her, and Sly Shizzle, Freeze, and Tori. They were, and when I posted it on Facebook, the thing that most people were saying was, "You're passing along good music to another generation."
Yep.
And really, really, what it was, in the days of where people don't play their own instruments or they copy thing. I took her to an actual show, of serious.
And 2 words to follow up with that: thank you. And to piggyback off that, I took my friend Lori, who had never seen. Actually, I took her twice to see the Morris Day and the Time. I've seen them before that. Actually, the first time I saw Morris Day and the Time, the current touring iteration with Tori and all them, was the week after Prince had passed, April 29th.
Oh boy!
And the first time they would use that video montage dedicated to Prince, actually. And that was at the casino in West Virginia. I believe that was a Hollywood casino. And talk about first time seeing Morris Day in the Time. I was like, I hadn't seen him. So I was like, oh, and this was, and I bought the tickets weeks before Prince had passed. And I thought for sure they were going to cancel the show. And nobody would have given side eye for that.
Yeah.
And but I've seen him a couple more times since then. But Tori gets all the praise in the world for bringing my friend Lori backstage and to meet all the guys. Now I have met Uncle Bean. I've had him as an interview a couple times on the podcast. And Marty Bragg, his partner in crime, and life partner, have been very generous. When I went out in 2022 and hung, and I got to see Jelly Bean play with JB in the Routine, with like 10 people in the audience, with his solo manager Jeff Luna. Shout out to Jeff. And
Jeff.
Got to go to the Perkins.
Yep, the Perkins.
To hear some stories. Not the Perkins where they all would hang out and hear stories not far from his house. And so I saw them June last year at the Wilmington Opera House, Grand Opera House, where a good buddy of mine runs Opera Delaware and performs his productions are performed there actually. And that's the first time that they've been at the Grand in Wilmington. Perfect theater for them. Perfect. The acoustics, actually, the sound was great for that show. Yeah. Best sound I've ever heard them at, the 3 times I've seen them. And they were at the River Casino in downtown Philadelphia as well. Three Rivers Casino. And that sound was okay there. And it was one of those makeshift rooms where they had to bring the chairs in, they just, yeah. It was okay. I took her to see them December 29th, 2023, or 2 there.
Okay.
Or 2023. No, 2022. And we met, this young lady I'm talking about, we met on a train for me to go Wednesday nights to a rehearsal for a group that I sing with in downtown Philly. She was wearing a Prince symbol hat. That's just what Prince does, folks.
Right. The way that, his music, legacy, whatever, brings together.
It's a tribe thing.
Absolutely.
It's a tribal. It's almost like Prince knew that he was creating his own tribal brand, like branding cattle, but branding who liked Prince.
And we all get it, right? We all get it, right? So it's like when you and I started talking, it was like we had known each other forever, right?
I mean, we're the same age group roughly too, so that helped.
Right. True, right? But it's like that relation, that type of symbiosis, right? That
no question.
One thing, you meet people, like interests, and then it just grows from there, and that's it's special,
Absolutely is. I'm going to try to make sure I hit the mute button when you talk, because I keep making you cut out.
Whoops.
My bad.
And
I keep cutting you out, brother.
I'm over here trying to make sure that my phone is staying charged, and for some reason it's not. So if you can bear with me a
moment. Take your time. I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I just don't want it to die while we're having our conversation.
Hey, I get it. And this is the first time doing this, folks. And it's not like you don't have a day job. This just happened to be my day off today.
Right.
So, and I've been running around helping a friend. I was telling him that we were delayed a little bit because I was taking a friend who has been incapacitated from work with pneumonia, just getting the feet back to the grocery store and stuff like that. Because that's what you do for people, or you should be doing for people.
Right. I'm going to get this squared away here. If have any more issues.
That's fine. This is called what we call local color.
Right.
Local flavor. Local flavor, people. Now, all right. So those who can't see the Vibe, because he's got autograph. Listen, you don't even have to humble brag on that one. You got the Vibe album cover, the Vibe magazine cover with all those people's names on it. Back when we had print magazines. Right, how about that?
Well, and it's funny because the things that I bought, albums that I bought, and magazines that I bought, when I went to go see the original Time out in 2008 in Las Vegas, I have always loved Jesse Johnson. I mean, Jesse is still very near and dear to my heart. The song, what he's meant, growing up and listening to all the music and things. I had a chance to have extended conversation with Jesse backstage, and we had dinner with the original Time, my wife and I, and he signed a whole bunch of stuff for me. He signed my Shockadelica CD. He signed my Every Shades of Love album. So I actually have the albums that are signed by all the time. I have the What Time Is It album signed. I have, those albums from Jesse signed. And when I bought those back in the day, in the 80s, when I was still buying vinyl and things, I never thought that I would have this opportunity, to meet these guys and then they would be as wonderful as they are. I literally remember holding the Time album going, I sure hope I can meet these guys one day. And now, Jelly Bean and Jerome loves my wife, Robin. Obviously, we haven't seen Jerome in many, many years, but, all the fellas in the band are great with us. And I never would have envisioned that back in the day,
Listen, They are the nicest. Like Rick Freeze, I said, man, I'm so glad to see the Freezicle up close. Hey, you want to hold it? You want to play it? Do you play? I said you should. So I now just a little trivia here. I'm a lefty,
Okay.
and I play
Yep.
my guitars inverted, meaning that the bottom strings are on the bottom and the top strings are on the top. Because I
Yep.
took my old man's acoustic guitar when I was young, and learned how to play upside down, righty upside down. So I can borrow any righty's guitar. And they were like, "Oh yeah, man, look at him. He's like mono neon." I'm like, "Yeah, without the sock on the neck, baby. Without the sock." I'm like, and not even a tenth of the chops.
Right.
But I'm holding Ricky Freeze's Freezicle, and this guy, for currently in the touring version of the time, this guy's got a pedigree playing for Dynasty, the
Yep.
Silvers.
First,
Leon
right.
Silver, brought him up through the rank. Let's not forget. Oh God, now here I'm forgetting. Pianist, Fifth Beatle,
Billy Preston.
Billy Preston. Jesus, thank you.
Yep.
How can I forget Billy Preston, the Fifth Beatle, the real
Right.
Fifth Beatle? He made. Those guys wanted to hire him as a full time member. Who wouldn't want to hire Billy Preston? And
Right.
actually, Ricky's featured in an upcoming. I don't know if it's out yet, but a documentary on Billy Preston because they knew each other as kids, and he went out. Ricky went out either playing drums or playing keyboards because the guy's a multi instrumentalist. He's not just a bass player. He plays keys. You
And,
know,
and looking at that, I never equated it. I always had, yes, I understand that some musicians can make a lot of money. A lot of musicians do it for the money. And if you're not, mega rich, you're not a mega superstar, but you're playing for the love of your craft. And that's what I always got from the fellas in the time. I went to that show I mentioned earlier, the private show we went to.
yeah.
My daughter and I went to the sound check. Okay. And you think that these guys would just phone it in, right? Yeah, okay, we got the notes down, whatever. Oh no. I mean, they were serious. The sound check went on so long, we actually had to leave and go eat dinner so we could come back for the show. We were the only ones in the, and Tori gave me a shout out while they were rehearsing Cool. But they were, nope, stop. That doesn't sound right. Get this right. Jelly Bean was counting everybody off, and they're that serious about it. They've been doing it all these years, and you figure you could just like mail that in. No, they're not ripping people off. You go to the show, you're getting a show, but you're getting a show with great musicianship. And that's the thing. I said it in an earlier podcast. That's the thing I always loved. It's always it's about the music.
And they honor the work ethic that the man who brought them into the fold had himself too.
Absolutely right. And I know that they don't take that for granted. When I talk to Jelly Bean, he'll always say, he calls us family. He says, you and Robin are family. He always, hey, I love you guys. He's always like, thank you. He always thanks us for coming out to see them. Freeze is the same way. And it's like, I always tell them, thank you for the music and the memories. That's a big deal. You're sharing your gifts with us. And whether I'm buying the tickets or not, that's not the point. The point is you have a gift to share. I want to be involved in that. And they're thanking us for coming. They don't take that for granted either. So I
They share
appreciate.
stuff off that we can't share on the air too. There's some nuggets of wisdom and stories that you will not hear anywhere else, but from them,
Right.
and give you a lot of their perspective of things because there's a different angle to every story and people's interpretations of events that took place and so and they will but the stories that they tell and the memories that they have of things is invaluable.
Here's an interesting story. The first
Please.
time I went to go see Morris on the Color of Success tour in '85 at the Beacon Theater, okay, in New York, right?
Oh,
And the show was great. I took my mom. My mom loved Prince, God bless her. Loved Prince, loved Morris. Took her to the show with my oldest brother. We had a wonderful time. I didn't have a chance to meet the fellas in the time and Morris until I think it was February of 2001. So we went
right.
backstage through my brother Joe Kelly. He was able to. He had the guys on the radio show, and they invited us, and we've been hanging with them ever since. But they invited us backstage, so we go backstage. And look, we're there with Monty Moyer and Freeze is there, Tori's there, Morris, Jelly Bean. So we're all doing our thing, and we're sitting there, and we're backstage sitting on the couches. Whatever. I brought my Color of Success tour program from '85 that Morris signed, and they're all clowning him for the pictures that are in there. The band was just giving him the business. They're laughing and joking. but they're telling stories about Eddie Murphy and Stevie Wonder and Michael, and they're having these conversations like it's nothing, you know. Oh yeah, we were backstage. We were with this one. This one came to our show. You know, we were hanging out with Eddie Murphy over here, and me and Joe and my oldest brother were sitting there going, "Are we really here?" You know. But it wasn't showing off. It wasn't braggadocio. It was, these are the things that we've gotten to do for how blessed we've been. You know, it was almost, there was a lot of, you know, laughing and joking going on, but it was almost like a gratitude or humility, you know. And they
that part.
they weren't acting like they were bigger than anybody. They were just
nope.
having fun, you know. And I love that about them. I've been out to, you know, a barbecue restaurant with Jelly Bean and Monty having dinner one night after one of their shows, you know, hanging out backstage, having drinks, hanging out with Jelly Bean after a show till 4 a.m, you know. It's just,
you told me that story, and I'm jealous. I've never met Monty. I saw him because I know he's had some health issues recently.
Yep.
I don't know any more about.
He said something to me when we had met. We had done a radio show when Joe had his radio show at WVOF here in Connecticut, Fairfield U. And we had interviewed Monty on there, and then we finally, you know, got to meet him and go backstage. And we had done that a few times. I've probably seen the Morris in the time more than 50 times, you know, since '96.
God.
And Monty said something to me once. He said, "You're always going to have a place with us. You're always going to have a place backstage." And he said that to me and my wife. And it was like, you know, I mean, just because we supported their music, we did the interviews, you know, we would help try to promote the shows any way that we could. We talk about them on social media. And you know, they were just that gracious, you know, that gratitude. And going back, you know, we go backstage and it's like, what do you want to eat? What do you want to drink? You know, the whole thing. It's just, it's genuine. I literally, I consider them friendships. I really do.
I'm kind of taken aback when I saw him in Wilmington, and they were like, "Hey man, you guys want something to eat? We got a couple extra plates of food for you." I said, "Oh, I didn't know that. We actually went out to eat before the show, but really, I mean, I'm full. I really would have broken bread with them, and you know, but they just no. It's no bull. They know they can say stuff around you and not feel so guarded because like you and we have this deep appreciation and respect for their craft. They know we're not some sycophantic hanger on just trying to ride the coattails of success. It has nothing to do with that. We're both scholars of the craft and scholars of the music, you know, amateur, well, not more than amateur musicologists.
Yeah, right.
You know,
right.
I myself and you having this diverse background. I mean, you know, I'm not trying to brag, but you know, I mean, I sang at the Kennedy Center for 14 years of my life in Washington Opera. Placido Domingo was my boss for 14 years, part time. And I have a wide, you know, call it ADHD. I just call it a diverse, you know, um, appreciation for all kinds of music. I grew up with so much music around the house. And, you know, living in the 80s, you know, corporate radio hadn't taken over quite yet the way it did a couple decades later.
Exactly. Absolutely.
And we heard on the same station, and Tori talked about this in one of my interviews. Kurt, do you remember the day when you could hear Elton John, Black Sabbath, and Lips Incorporated on the same something? He didn't say those exact words, but I'm paraphrasing. On the same station, I said, yes, I do. And what's ruined it, I mean, now I guess with streaming, that kind of, it's a DIY version of that. You can pretty much listen to anything you want now.
Make your own
Kids
playlist.
I don't know really know. They know there's music that they don't know and music that they know. They may not necessarily say, oh, unless they have parents or grandparents or other older figures that tell them what era that came from. If you're young and discovering music for your own on your own, you know, you may not necessarily know what time period something came from, right, unless you've been introduced to a sound from a different era or what have you. You know what I mean? So, but you know, we all grew up with this diverse, and particularly in Minnesota, they grew up with more rock radio, but they had to hunt for
right,
funkadelic or, you know, all that stuff. So it's just interesting in the landscape.
Right. You know, they play, you know, funk music at, you know, after midnight or whatever, you know. And brother, I'm the same way as you because I grew up now. I've seen Mel Torme. I saw Tony Bennett. I never saw Sinatra. Gosh darn it! But I saw,
Neither have I. But I haven't seen those two guys you just mentioned.
yeah, I mean,
Velvet
and
Fog.
the Velvet Fog, Mel Torme, absolutely. And his show was wonderful. But on the flip side, Motley Crue. I've seen Bon Jovi 30 something times, Whitesnake, Poison, all the hair bands, but then I love Barry Manilow. I love the Bee Gees. I love Prince. I love the time. So it's the same way. I grew up in a neighborhood that was predominantly minority. But my father listened to, predominantly standards and, big band jazz. So I had that association. But then, I took, my brothers were all into classic rock, Zeppelin and, Skinner and Rush and all that. And so I literally had a piece of everything, and that's where I got that appreciation for all kinds of music. Now, piggybacking on that, Prince played all kinds of music. He said he wasn't going to be pigeonholed as being a white artist, a black artist, a rock artist, a funk artist. So if you think about that, coming from a background of loving all kinds of music to then, coming into a man who did it all different types of genres, it was just a natural progression that I would gravitate towards Prince.
I got to take a minute to just say ditto. I mean, it's like Prince was an amalgamation of all different kinds of styles. You can listen to like 1999 Controversy, and you hear elements of Gary Newman, who's a huge influence on him at that time. Okay.
Right.
Two-Way Army, which was his band before he, broke out solo. And Gary Newman is still at it.
Yep.
Yeah. And still, he almost sounds more like a more aggressive version of Nine Inch Nails, if that's even possible.
Right.
And and the things you find out about Gary, we could talk off the air about that. He's on the autism spectrum, diagnosed later on, but he kind of knew that he was different. And in fact, he talks about the fact the Cars song is about the fact that he's, his bubble of autism was a direct result of that inspiration for that song. But anyhow, Gary Newman, you listen to Makeup, which on the Originals album, one of the first posthumous releases, and that version of Makeup, my God, Gary Newman could have put that out.
Yep. Right. So, and you see those influences, you see all the different types of
Santana,
new wave, punk, Santana, whatever. So again, not going to be one thing because he wasn't one thing. You get some artists that gravitate towards, okay, I'm going to go do this because it's the hippest trend, and yes, Prince was accused of that. He's trying to be New Jack Swing. He's trying to follow rap and all that. But if you think about it, he had already laid the groundwork for so much of that type of music, so to hear him say that he's trying to play catch up with it is kind of unfair, because
Questlove talks about how Prince was hip hop without really knowing it.
Right. Right.
Because I'll throw out Irresistible Bitch.
Yep.
Okay. B-side, right? That was rap.
That's rap. Exactly.
And maybe his way and not the way that we would hear it later on, particularly in the 80s. And the year that Lovesexy came out, bringing Lovesexy in the conversation, 88 was an amazing year for hip hop. Hip hop dominated that year. You think about all the artists that came out. There's that Will Smith podcast series, Class of 88. That year was just exploding.
Right.
So, maybe because that was so much in the conversation, all of a sudden when Prince starts doing Diamonds and Pearls and introduces Tony Mosley, Tony M, into the fold, actually having a rapper in his group at that time, and then going on to do all the other stuff that he did. There was a little rap in, Girls and Boys, for God's sake.
Or even, think about it. Dead on It from the Black Album. The original.
Hello. And cleverly, any good rapper is one that's dead on it. Right. It's like he skirted the line like, I'm going to be a smart ass about it. It's like, he just didn't conceive, and then later on he would embrace, Chuck D,
even having,
Kendrick Lamar.
Right. So, and again, he, I think that, I don't know that he was chasing so much as he was, also helping to evolve or, develop. But, at the end of the day, he did so much to influence so many different types of music that you have to give him his due. You
It's
just have
always
to.
going to be an argument, Jay, between the egg versus the chicken.
Right.
Because if there hadn't been a Prince, there would not be a Teddy Riley
Right.
to come up with something different, perhaps, or to mutate whatever Prince was doing and come up with their own thing. There wouldn't be an L.A. Reid. There would
Right.
not be a Babyface. But
Yep.
there would be no Prince had there not been a Little Richard. Had there
Right.
not been an Escarita.
Right.
Ooh, deep cut there. Ooh, that man, come on. There
But
would,
you are
I mean, if
absolutely.
so, and a lot of people talk about Santana being the major influence in his playing. Eddie Hazel, Maggot Brain, Prince definitely took a page out of that, man.
Right.
And the one who actually schooled me on that, and I have to give credit where credit is due, is Bean, Uncle Bean. Because I saw him play Maggot Brain, and for those who don't know, Uncle Bean, Jelly Bean Johnson, Morris Day at the time, wrote, Black Cat. That should be common knowledge, but you'd be surprised how much that isn't common knowledge because you didn't get the credit the way you should have gotten credit. But anyway,
Absolutely.
And criticized for,
Vander O'Neill.
Yeah, Alexander, who was supposed to be the original singer at the time, but every diehard who's watching this goes, yeah, we already know that, but whatever, But back to Prince and all this stuff. Eventually, I mean, did he chase whatever trends? I don't think he never really chased them. I think he said, "Oh, yeah, I can do that too." He was more of a, "Yeah, I can do that too, but I'm going to do it my way." So what I love about him progressing on, and now we're diverting from the two main topics, but whatever. This is called talking about Prince, folks. We gonna talk about what the hell we ain't nobody paying us for this shit.
Exactly.
We do what we want.
Yet.
We some grown ass men over 50. That's true. We grown ass men over 50.
You can't tell us shit.
Well, you can, but we might be telling you to you back.
Right.
But when you get to all the post Diamonds and Pearl stuff, he's like, I tried all that stuff. Here's what I really want to do. When he started getting into more of the jazz lexicon,
yep,
he did what okay, I've tried all this other stuff. I've been to the mountaintop of the pop universe and stuff, but here's the music I'm really gravitating towards, and here's what I really want to do. By the time you get to Hit and Run 2, I would say Artificial Age was his last, like, for me, the last album that truly was aiming towards a pop universe, or, here's old versus new mixed together. Then you get to Hit and Run Part, and he's experimenting with some things and stuff like that. Hit and Run Part 2 is like, yeah, okay, here's another album I want to do. When you got to Diamonds and Pearls, however, when hip hop and New Jack was in the landscape, he got rid of the drum machines and drum program. Not all of it, but live drummers.
So you're right, and having a powerhouse like Michael Bland.
Oh man!
But
Michael, come on the show.
If anyone has, if anyone has gotten the Diamonds and Pearls Super Deluxe Edition, okay, and the Diamonds and Pearls album is wonderful, okay, I've gotten it, but the cuts that are on that, okay, that he had a mastery of New Jack Swing, okay, yes, there's elements
of that fat,
right, yeah, he could do that, right, and it's almost like he did it effortlessly, so when you hear songs, even some more of the pop stuff like Standing at the Altar for Margie Cox, and then the Get Blue, which was originally given to Louie Louie, who I loved back when his first album came out in 1990. But it's like Prince did that because he could, to your point. Yeah, I can do that. And I did it. Now I'm on to the next thing, because he had gotten to a point in his life, even earlier on in his life, where he earned the right to do what he wanted to do. And he wasn't going to be told what to do, and he wasn't going to be pigeonholed what to do. I'm going to do what moves me. And that's always what he did.
So Gilbert Davison on Funkatopia talked about how he did kind of hire for Fargnoli to come back and do some low-key management for him at that time. And Frank DeLeo, who had worked for Michael Jackson, became his publicist at that time.
Yep.
He definitely wanted to come back on the pop landscape. And it was on the sly that I think Cavallo, Rufino, and Fargnoli, I think they were all on board, but it might have been more Fargnoli was the guy that they talked to the most, if I'm not mistaken. But And I could be wrong. Somebody can correct me in the comments below, because I know there's going to be a comment down below if there is one, and that's fine, because there's only so much that can stay in the C drive when you're over 52. So there is that component. Unfortunately, time gets us all, Jay.
Gets us all. For no one.
Not more stay in the time, but just the time. Rip Van Winkle time. So at any rate, it's just I'm so glad we finally got to do this, and set the trail before us on other topics. But I did want to show, if we're doing show and tell here, that I do have the original tour program.
As do I. Yep.
And when I went to see Sheila E. at the City Winery in Philadelphia early 23 in February 2003. 2023. And I wore my purple suit and took my friend Lori, and we had front seats. It was table seating right by the drum kit. Had no idea I was that close. And and she had her cousins and stuff like that selling the merch for her. It was a family affair. And it was the second show. I didn't want to go to the first show. I wanted to go to the show that I knew was going to be more like the after show.
Yeah, thing. Right.
Always go to the late shows if they offer 2 shows, right? If you can't afford both.
Right.
And I did bring my Lovesexy tour program to get signed. And she did sign it. Mm-hmm. But the important thing that you got to know about this Lovesexy tour program is that her stuff was written backwards so you could put it up to a mirror. And without flinching, she signed it to Kurt Sheila E. backwards.
Or then they say she can do it like nobody's business, right?
Yep. And so, hold on.
That's too cool. It really is.
Without skipping a beat, she did that, and she was worn out from the show. I said, "Hey, I really appreciate it. I'm terribly sorry. I know you're tired. Thank you for. It's been a long time I've wanted to just thank you for all the music and stuff like that. You're welcome." But she could tell, she's in her 60s, and she still kicks ass and takes names on the drums. But when you're doing 2 back-to-back shows, at least an hour and a half or more longer,
that's no joke. And if I can just tell a quick story,
please.
I saw Sheila at a club in, let's see, my daughter, by 94, the year my first daughter was born, at a club. Charlie Sepulveda was on trumpet, and the great Eric Leeds was on sax. And
the E-Train shows.
Right. I want to say that it was at Tramps, because we used to go to Tramps all the time. Tramps was the first place that I went to go see The Time. So we used to hang out there a lot.
Wow.
And we sat on the floor. There were no seats. And she was out, and I think she was barefoot at the time. She put on a hell of a show. I mean,
she did.
Unbelievable.
With any luck, Eric said he'll probably be in town when I'm going to be in Minnesota, Minneapolis, greater area, June 27th to July 1st. And with any luck, I asked if I'd like to take him to lunch or dinner. And he said, sure, I should be around at that time. I'd love to. So hopefully, with any luck, because Eric's one of my favorites. I mean, and I know, for people who are like, oh, when he talks shit about Prince, he's just telling it the way he sees it.
Right.
And that he necessarily wasn't, he was there to do a job for Prince, and boy, did he do it well. And if it weren't for the fact that he worked for Prince, he would not have put out his own music and what have you. And, he's, enjoying he does stuff with Paul Peterson and all that, but he's kind of, he does what he wants to do now. He doesn't have to go out there and do a million shows, and he's done well. The checks still come in.
And Eric is one of the ones that I've always wanted to meet. I do have his autograph. He did sign a CD for me. He and St. Paul signed the CD for me. I have never gotten to meet him. But while since you mentioned St. Paul, I have to give St. Paul a shout out.
Please.
I love him. I love him to death. I met him a couple of times in person. We communicate, I'll say fairly regularly. He has been one of the nicest people, always answers my questions, always returns a text. He's just a genuine human being. He did a cameo. One of my wife's favorite songs is Only Reminds Me of You. And I've been in love with that song since I first heard it in August of 1990 on the Down to the Wire CD. He did a
Wow.
cameo, sang that for my wife, and it was just unbelievable. So I always give a shout out to St. Paul. Just mad love. He's a wonderful, wonderful person.
I would like, well, let's talk about trying to get him on the show.
I can help you with that.
I have no qualms whatsoever. And if I'm being honest, I don't know his solo catalog stuff as well as I should.
Mhm.
I confess. I'm confessing here. But, all the stuff that I have listened to, the F Deluxe, some of the later stuff, Intimacy.
Intimacy,
Intimacy.
right?
That's a hot video, too.
And I love his solo stuff, his romantic stuff, that I obviously gravitate towards, Robin with that. It's wonderful, but his funk, I buy anything that he puts out. His version of, um, oh God, the Stevie Wonder song, Love's in Need of Love Today. Okay. I love Stevie's version. I absolutely love George Michael's version. St. Paul's version is wonderful. If you haven't heard it, you have to hear it.
That's got to happen. I haven't heard it.
it
I haven't heard
it's
it.
fantastic.
And I'd love it if they'd come out this way, but I understand feasibility and touring and stuff like that. But and it's really cool to see that he's used, Matt Fink, his brother,
Yep.
Jason Dallaire, also Peterson, and Ricky Peterson, but Elisa Fiorillo.
Yes. Oh my goodness. That's a
And
power.
and I have to say, I'm not from the Philadelphia area, but I live not too far. Her roots are Philadelphia. She's a Philly girl and a diehard Eagles fan.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Yeah, well, I know you're Patriots, right?
No.
Oh no! What? Oh no, Jets. No,
Giant Giants.
Giants. Okay.
So
I was rooting for, you guys gave, so, Baltimore Ravens, that's, purple and black over here. But, hey, but okay. Whoops. Don't
you went
piss off a
Patriots.
Giants fan. All good. All love, brother. All love. So,
All love.
any final thoughts or remarks? Because I know we're going to continue this train here, but I'm thinking back to the Lovesexy times. I would like to, and he will come on here because Steve and I talk fairly. I'd really like to have Steve Park. And Steve, if you're out there, I'm gonna give a shout out. Steve is a very generous individual with his time and the stories that he can tell.
Mm-hmm.
Just getting the floor of the Lovesexy tour stage floor together. Just the painting, the furious painting that just the stories alone. It's stunning.
If no one has picked up his book, you really should. The
Picturing
pictures are,
Prince, yes.
but the prose that's in there and the stories that he tells,
Yep.
and intimate moments that he shares about, like when Prince would come to his office while he was working, and some of the music they listened to or the conversations they had. And he shares that in the book. Is wonderful. I would love to be a part of that with you if Steve comes on, because I can just imagine how special that would be.
All right, we're going to talk off the air about that. So, um, at anyhow, at any rate, we stay tuned for more to come. And yes, the Eric Leeds interviews are going to be up, but be prepared, man. Pack a lunch, pack your dinner, because he gets into it. I ask him questions. I hope nobody else asks, because really, my whole goal has been to try to ask the left turn questions versus the right turns. Like, what is their favorite film? What kind of food? Other things that may necessarily not come up in conversation, because Eric has not just the jazz artists that are his favorite. He introduced me to, his favorite musicians, that he likes to listen to. And Eric, oh God, Eddie Palmieri, Sentido, the album Sentido. I'm like, he introduced me to that whole world, the Afro-Cuban stuff. And I'm like, and he's Puerto Rican by descent, but he's got a lot of Afro-Cuban influences. Puerto Rican American guy, who still at 87, 88 was just at the Blue Note in New York, still playing the piano, still touring. It's unbelievable. This guy's still out there, and that's Eric Leeds' favorite musician. I never would have known about him had I not,
You're not association. Yeah, yeah.
made the conversation with him. But he'll talk about his favorite classical composers. He talks about a whole host of things. his favorite TV show. You'll have to tune in for that because there's a whole lot of information I haven't heard in any other interviews. And you try to listen to everybody else's interviews and try to ask, and it might be more niche for people. You may not get as many hits to get the greatest hit questions out there, but you know, I want these people to be documented about all aspects of their life. Like Eric Leeds is obsessed with trains, which he said on Michael Dean's show before, and baseball and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, so what kind of trains? And you get into that whole conversation. Man, I mean, the dude knows a lot about baseball and trains. The interview that I did with him, we talked about the Orioles were in the contention for the World Series, pre-game before the World Series, and so were the Phillies, and so it's kind of dated in terms of the references and stuff like that, but well worth listening to. And this again, ladies and gentlemen, with Jay here, turning back the conversation to this guy. Thank you so much for coming on and discussing all this wonderful stuff. I will have this up and ready ASAP, as this is May 10th, and it is, again, the 36th anniversary of Lovesexy. And, Polished Solid, shout out to you, lady, because you always, D'Angela Duff, always has that sample button ready. I don't have it, but, I just want to look at you. I just want to listen to you. That stuff. I don't have that, I don't got it like that, but she always got that Lovesexy button every time she does her thing. But it is really important to cherish and respect this album. It's probably one of my favorite albums next to Sign of the Times. That's my all-time favorite Prince album. But 84 to 88 is my sweet spot.
Yeah, yep.
And I love everything after that too. But there was just something magical about those first 8 years.
Absolutely.
First 10 years, really. I mean, 78 to 88. I mean, I'm Yours from For You. I mean, the guitar work and all, shredded. We could go on and on. So, folks, if you like what you heard today, and fear not, after I put this up soon, next week, I will have next Friday, next Purple Friday, because, I use Purple Friday as my thing because, the Ravens use Purple Friday. But when the Ravens aren't playing and it's off season, then who they're picking on the draft and all that stuff, it's still Purple Friday for me because we got Prince, yes. We got Prince, baby. So anyway, if you like what you hear, please hit the like and subscribe button down. Hit the notification buttons anytime I got stuff coming out. I plan on doing much more of these as much as our schedules can align, which I know Jay and I will make sure that tries to happen as much as humanly possible. Other guests I will have on will be Vicky Lee from the UK. We're going to talk about the crayon, as I like to call the LGBTQIA world, the crayon box cartel. That's my nickname for it. They are going to have a different perspective on gender, queer specificity when it comes to Prince. We're going to have a whole host of conversations because Prince was genderqueer before there was even a term, folks. Let's just be honest. Prince broke the rule. Prince took the rules of male-female fashion after Bowie had done it and threw away into the wastebasket and came up with his own thing. A lot of people wasn't sure. He made people know. And if you don't know, you better ask somebody. But, we wasn't sure because you got all that mascara and blush on. But he took the idea, what was it to be male? What was it to be male? What was it to be female? So stay tuned for those kind of episodes because we're going to get in deep about this. We're going to get in deep. All right. Jay, thank you, sir. Until next time, folks, keep it on the 2 and 4. All the party people get on the 4.
Peace.